Spirit. Amen. So many good things to preach on this morning, and I would like to do my take on the first lesson and on our gospel. Many of you coming from another tradition into the Episcopal Church may remember an old evangelical hymn that was often used in the altar call, "Have thine own way, Lord." Well, one of the verses to that goes something like this: "Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after your will, while I am waiting, yielded and still." I was very blessed in my first year at St. John's, around 1975, to become acquainted with Agnes Stark. Many of you may know her, a marvelous potter, probably the premier potter in the Memphis area. My wife, being a great lover of pottery, wanted a full set of her everyday, so to speak, pottery. The plates, the cups, all the rest of that. Well, I was fortunate to have her invite me to come and watch her work. And it was one of those busy days. When I got there, she was already splattered all over the apron and everything with all the clay you can imagine and water. But the experience, how many of you had the experience of watching pottery being made on a wheel? It's an amazing kind of thing, and this metaphor that Jeremiah uses, "go down to the potter's house," might describe a wheel that keeps turning in movement, and it must be in movement for anything good to be created. And the kind of clay, I talked to her about the kind of clay she used is, it has to be a special kind. Not just any kind of clay will do. It has to be capable of being re-wetted constantly. And I sat there and watched her. And as that wheel turned, she would change her mind about what she was creating. I said, "What are you thinking about creating?" She said, "An urn," and then a little bit later, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make a plate out of it." So, the fact that she can change it, is able to change it and mold it into what she wants it to be. It's an amazing process, and as I say, the Lord God in this passage from Jeremiah is saying, "Hey, Israel, I can shape you. I have shaped you. I think I need to change your shape because you're not doing so well." And that's what he says. But do you notice one thing about a potter? They don't throw the clay away. They do not throw it away. It's valuable. They simply lay it aside or reshape it. Reshape it. I got to thinking about my own life, and I'd like for you to think about yours this morning. There have been times in my life in which I suppose God would have described me as a goblet that the potter might make. In my salad days, so to speak. At any rate, there where you're learning, where you're having a good time out there in the world. And then later, a little later in my life, I would have probably been shaped into a dinner plate maybe. And eventually God, I think, said, "No, I need a serving plate or a serving bowl here." And you become a servant. You learn how to be a servant. You learn how to be less selfish out there in the world. But at any rate, during times and seasons of our life, the potter has shaped you and me, the great potter, into his hopefully servants. servants. Now, I will leave it at that. Something for you to mull on and think about. That first lesson is brought up. What kind of vessel would you be today? Just remember, the potter is still shaping. He's still shaping. The wheel is still turning. Now, with that thought in mind, we'd like to move to today's gospel, which must have been a shocker to you all. It always is a shocker to me when I read it. Anyone who does not love father and mother, brother and sister, who does not love family more than me is not worthy of being my disciple. Well, first of all, I had to stop and look at that word disciple. What is a disciple? The Greek word means one who is willing to be taught, one who is willing to learn. Jesus in this passage must have been terribly frustrated. He's done many miracles, and the crowds get larger and larger and larger from following him because they want to see a greater miracle. And he must have said, been terribly frustrated. Turns around and says to them, hey, if you want to follow me, here are the things you've got to look at in your life. Number one, what are your priorities? Where are your priorities and what are they? It always, takes me by surprise. And I'm going, stop, Walker. What are your priorities? What are they? Are you willing to put God first up here? God above family? God above possessions? We'll come to that later. But, what are your priorities? Someone had said if you put God first in your life, all of the other things will fall into place in the right order. Well, I found that's true. Examine your priorities. That's what he's telling them. It's what he's telling you and me. If we are his disciples, and we are by token of our baptism, now then, the second thing comes down to, he says, hey, you want to be a follower of mine, what have you got to do? Pick up your cross and follow me. I don't need to talk about cross-bearing. You all know what that is. Some imposed and placed upon you, others you willingly take up. Bearing the cross is not easy. You and I know that. Good Friday is hard to get through too. But without Good Friday, you do not have what? Easter. So the promise of the cross is resurrection and new life. I found that true in my own life. I will experience, and you will experience, many crosses and resurrections and Easters in your life long before you die physically. God brings new life out of the cross. New life. Resurrection. But the willingness to pick up the cross and carry it is what the Lord wants to see in us. And then the third thing, what does he ask them to do? And wow, I have a trouble with this one too, I must admit. Give up all your possessions. I'm a great movie collector and book collector, bibliophile, one of those. I'm a hoarder in a small way, My mother's just the opposite. She's a minimalist. Get rid of it. You don't need it. I'm learning and have been throughout my life to let go. To let go of things. If any of you in here have ever experienced a robbery in your home, or a break-in, or have lost possessions and valuable things, you know that it changes your whole mindset about possessions. If it were all taken away from you as it was for Job, how would you deal with it? How would I deal with it? Everything except your life and your dear ones. Possessions, gone. It really makes you stop and think, because we are a consumer society. We really are. All you have to do is turn on TV and watch it, get on the internet and try to get those advertisements off of something. Everybody wants to sell you something. But at any rate, how would possessions, what kind of priority might they be in your life? Have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. I am the potter. You are the potter. I am the clay. Mold me and make me after your will, while I am yielded, waiting and still. Amen.